Welcome to my master dissertation presentation, which is a short summary of my thesis titled Dual Shame Dynamics in Subclinical Narcissistic Relationships, a Framework for Relational Repair. My name is Erzsébet Zsoldos. That I will speak about in this presentation, the problem statement and my aim. In the theoretical part, I will introduce you to narcissism, its effects on intimate relationships, shame, how dual shame occurs, and in the intervention part, we will see existing modalities, couples' needs, and of course the new practical intervention. Then pros and cons are coming, future directions, and finally conclusions. So the problem is that subclinical narcissists maintain a dysfunctional relationship with their intimate partners, where shame dynamics reinforce the maladaptive cycles. That's why the new intervention I developed targets to increase awareness, emotional regulation, and shame resilience for the couples. We will get it through the exploration and introduction of theoretical and empirical approaches about narcissism, their relationships, shame, and how dual shame dynamics occur. If we go back to the Greek mythology, we can understand how Narcissus echoes dysfunctional bond takes place. Narcissus suffers from distorted self-image. He is self-absorbed and self-obsessed. On the other hand, Echo suffers from self-surrender, suppression of her voice and needs, and passivity and people-pleasing. Both together are fixated, and together they create a toxic bond or dual shame. Narcissism lies on a continuum. At one extreme, it is NPD, narcissistic personality disorder. Somewhere in the middle is healthy narcissism, which is self-assertion, and the other end goes towards egoism. But what is narcissism? Research says that it is maladaptive self-enhancement, for example, grandiosity with self, emotional and behavioral dysregulation, in response to ego threats or self-enhancement failures, for example, vulnerability. Subclinical narcissism is between healthy narcissism and MPD, and it means that narcissistic personality traits that exhibit socially aversive, dislikable characters and behaviors, but clinically not significant. Let's see, egoism, that is also very important. It lacks healthy narcissism, which is not a diagnosable condition, but empirically well supported and a well-known phenomenon. Narcissism has mainly two forms, grandiose manifestation and vulnerable form. Grandiose is characterized by self-centered aggrandizement, inflated self-importance, superiority, rage, arrogance, aggression, egotism, agentic traits. On the other hand, vulnerable form is characterized by reactive fragility, devaluing, hiding the self, contingent self-esteem, hypersensitivity to criticism, anxiety, neuroticism, feeling of inadequacy, and so on. Their main common core is antagonism, with self-enhancing fantasies, egotism, and entitlement. Now let's see two main scientific two theories. Psychodynamic approach says that early unmet needs lead to a fragile self and shame that needs to be protected by the grandiose defenses. And social cognitive theory posits that narcissism is rooted in distorted, self-inflated beliefs about their superiority and uniqueness. Their relationships function as a zero-sum game, and shame often turns up in the relational context. Now let's see two models. The trifurcated model says that the subclinical narcissistic traits converge in the antagonistic component, but they differ whether the agentic or the neurotic aspect shapes the narcissistic attributes. The mask model says that the grandiosity is a disguise of the fragile self, and when these narcissistic strategies fail, fail, the deep-rooted shame comes up in vulnerable form, which is also called failed narcissism. So we can also say that vulnerable types were or have been unable to become grandiose. Relational dynamics are also very important in this topic. Barbie's attachment theory says that the early attachment patterns profoundly affect the emotional aspects and conflict resolution later in adulthood. And complex trauma research found the same. It says in a kind of different words, but it is the same. Repeated abuse, mainly in childhood, cause negative personality changes that affects or cause deformations in relatedness and identity, and the survivors are particularly vulnerable to repeated harm. While Barbie's attachment theory found that consistent positive treatment increases attachment, paradoxical attachment theory contradicted this one, saying that unpredictable phases of love bombing and insult lead to emotional dependency and codependency, and intermittent reinforcement, which is a psychological term, also confirmed this one, saying attachment is strengthened by sporadic bursts of affection alternating with harsh treatment. And going back to Dutton and Painter, they also found about trauma bond, which is not love but power imbalance and an inescapable trap of toxic power dynamics. And they said that both the narcissist and the victim maintain the relationship, and they are addicted to play the game. Now, what about shame? Research says that shame is a painful wound to self-esteem, as opposed to guilt, which is a kind of I did something wrong. Shame is unflawed, so my being is absolutely wrong, very bad. And in Kohut theory, shame is the core aspect of narcissism that comes from the defects of the self and the failures to reach the ego ideal. So this ego threats comes from narcissistic injury, and they provoke narcissistic rage. And this rage comes out in self-perpetuating shame-rage spiral, and that of course causes many forms of abuse. Now, what about US shame? But first, it is still about shame. Shame is a common inherent interpersonal component of trait narcissism, and because the partner is badly affected and projected to be a bad object, the partner suffers from the narcissistic unpredictable behavior, relentless criticism, physical and psychological abuse, and out of which the verbal emotional abuse is the most damaging. And it causes the person insecurity, confusion, ambiguity, cognitive dissonance, and the inner perspective of themselves as shameful, powerless, and unlovable. Unfortunately, this really causes biochemical addiction in the brain. So different neurotransmitters like cortisol, adrenaline, oxytocin, vasopressin, serotonin, and dopamine act together much like cocaine, and through which the intermittent reinforcement fixes the relational bond in the brain, negatively affecting the salience network. Now let's see the intervention. So my aim, so the intervention target was to see the dual shame that displays in relationships where one partner exhibits subclinical narcissistic traits, and to develop an integrated model to achieve the most effective treatment with dual shame. And I have done it via mapping the best practices of effective modalities treating dysfunctional relational dynamics or shame. in order to put it together, I need to look at the couple's needs. So I took the dynamic biopsychosocial model to tailor the program to the client's needs. In order to develop, to find the best skill development for the narcissistic partner and also for the non-narcissistic partner. That is not absolutely the same, because, for example, the non-narcissistic partner doesn't need to improve empathy because it makes trauma bonding stronger. Also, I looked at the practitioner's part. She must build a strong therapeutic alliance to generate limbic resonance, preparing for transference, countertransference issues, helping clients toward post-traumatic growth and rupture repair. I have looked at 15 evidence-based interventions, and I found that each of them offer valuable insights and techniques and tools for addressing the issues separately, but none fully addresses the dynamic and the reciprocal nature of shame in intimate relationships of individuals with narcissistic traits. Therefore, I found the integration of these modalities very useful. So, this is my developed intervention, the relational shame repair framework, unmasking shame repair toolkit, a 10-week structured counseling program, weekly 90-minute sessions facilitated by a trained relational counselor or a therapist with experience in narcissistic dynamics and shame-informed practices. And this is for couples where one partner meets the criteria for subclinical narcissism. It has well thought out structures and methods of integration. Some elements are integrated early on, for example, NARM and IFS. Some come in mid-program, for example, somatic approaches, and there are tools for reconnection, and TOM and mentalization play a central role. Psychoeducational elements are recurring and so on, but the point is that it must be flexible, so the flexible treatment plan must be tailored to the client's needs. Two of the quantitative measures, for example, experience of shame scale for checking the frequency and intensity of shame experiences. The other's post-traumatic growth indicator for psychological growth after adversity, and two of qualitative measures, for example, weekly shame check-ins for small shifts in emotion and shame responses, and client journaling for personal insights into emotional experiences or dual shame moments. Crespa found that qualitative methods capture the data more accurately. The program has strengths and also limitations, and sometimes they are the same. On the one hand, it is novel and innovative. On the other hand, not yet empirically validated. The target group asks for help, but highly vulnerable. Transference issue will come up. The time frame is affordable, probably, and hopefully. Also money-wise, but cannot fully resolve the complexity of this issue. For future research questions, I put here only 3. What would be the optimal length and sequence of this program? How does shame evolve during recovery from narcissistic abuse through changing narratives or need for closure? And how might it best be adapted to different cultural norms? Finally, the conclusion is here, as there is no intervention treating dysfunctional dynamics of dual shame of couples in subclinical narcissistic relationships. After a due consideration of theoretical and empirical approaches, a new 10-week counseling program is developed to increase their awareness, emotional regulation, and shame resilience, of course, for the couples. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, which was illustrated by me, and please also find the reference. Thank you very much. Goodbye.